Hey, and welcome to this course on JetBrains Rider. I'm Dan Clark, an independent developer and consultant, host of the Unhandled Exception podcast, a user group organizer, and Microsoft MVP. I also have a couple of other Dome Train courses, one on Docker and the other on Kubernetes. So Rider is a cross-platform .NET IDE created by JetBrains. I've been a huge fan of it for many years now, and it's been instrumental to my productivity as a software developer. And coincidentally, I've timed creating this course really well because JetBrains have recently announced that they've changed their licensing so that it's free for non-commercial use. So if you don't have a license, no need to skip past this course, as you can just download Rider for free and follow along. And being cross-platform, you can use it to create .NET applications regardless of whether you use Windows, Linux or Mac as an operating system. Whilst you could say this course is a guide to using Rider, my aim is for it to be much more than that. I've worked with a lot of developers throughout the years, and I'd say that only a very small handful have stood out to me as being really fast in their IDE. I mean, flying around the IDE, leveraging keyboard shortcuts and code refactoring functionality. A lot of developers manually type out a lot of code or manually make changes throughout their code base that Rider can do for you in seconds. Learning Rider saves so much time, and also, to be honest, it just looks cool when you're pair programming. My aim is to not only show you how to use the different areas of Rider, but also to litter this course throughout with tons of tips and tricks, which will save you time and make you a faster and more productive developer. It'll also be very hands-on with demos throughout. I'll keep slides to an absolute minimum, I promise. In the next video, we'll talk about the main areas we'll cover in this course. This course is about the Rider IDE itself and doesn't dive into specific .NET technologies, so whilst I'll touch on its support for technologies like MAUI and Unity, the main focus of this course is going to be teaching you how to be really efficient in Rider, leveraging its very powerful functionality to write code much faster and of a higher quality, regardless of the type of application that you're building. We'll cover features like code navigation, refactoring, code generation, code analysis. I'll show you how to use the debugger effectively with various debugging tips and tricks. We'll cover automated testing, including continuous testing. We'll look at managing different types of dependencies. Rider has some great tools to help with that. Rider has amazing Git support. I'll show you how to use this. A lot of developers work remotely, so we'll be looking at tooling that can help there. For example, they have something called remote development and pair programming support with JetBrains Code with me. Speaking of being more productive when writing code, AI is a big thing now, and Rider has great AI integrations, so we'll cover that too. There's also much more, and as I mentioned in the last video, I aim to litter this course with lots of tips and tricks throughout the course. For example, useful keyboard shortcuts and faster ways of doing things. Hopefully by now you have a good idea of whether this course is for you or not, but just in case, in the next video I'll briefly summarise who I think this course is best suited for. If you've listened to the previous two videos, you'll probably already have a good idea of whether this course is for you or not, so I'll keep this video fairly short. So, if you're already an existing .NET developer, or you want to play around with or learn .NET, then this course is for you. Told you I'll keep it short. Seriously though, it's just that. If you've never used Rider before, it's for you. If you've used Rider for years, then it's still for you, as I'm fairly sure there'll be something here for all experience levels. Also, whilst this course is targeted at .NET developers because Rider is JetBrains' .NET IDE, it's actually built on top of their IntelliJ platform, which means that their other IDEs are very similar and they all plug into the same ecosystem, including a lot of popular plugins. As for prerequisites, we'll cover installing Rider in the next module, so you don't even have to start with Rider installed. All you need is your computer with an operating system, and because Rider is cross-platform, you can pick any operating system you like. Well, as long as it's Windows, Linux or Mac, that is, but I'm assuming you're using one of those. Each module in this course will end with a few multi-choice questions. The purpose of this isn't to test you, but rather to allow you to actively recall some key points from the module. I'm currently reading a book called Make It Stick, which is about the science of successful learning. I'd certainly recommend this book so far, and one of the key points of this book is that by actively recalling information from memory, that's one of the best ways you can make information stick in long-term memory, hence the questions at the end. None of these questions will be hard, they're just highlighting key points from the module. So let's take a look at the first set of questions, then we'll move on to the main course content. So I can't really talk about Rider without also mentioning ReSharper. ReSharper is an insanely popular Visual Studio extension, also by JetBrains. It adds a lot of very advanced functionality, such as refactoring tools, code analysis, powerful navigation, and much more. And Rider now has all of that ReSharper goodness built in. In fact, the name Rider comes from ReSharper IDE, so RIDE, Rider. ReSharper has been around a lot longer than Rider, and JetBrains already had their IntelliJ platform, which is what a lot of their existing IDEs are built on. So they were already very experienced with building IDEs. So creating their own .NET IDE with the ReSharper functionality was an obvious evolution. They just needed to take that functionality out of ReSharper so that their new Rider IDE could leverage that functionality. Now, one of the issues with ReSharper is that Visual Studio extensions run in the same process as the Visual Studio IDE. And given both Visual Studio and ReSharper do a lot of stuff, having both in the same process could quite often really slow things down. For Rider, they wanted to move the ReSharper engine into a separate process than the Rider IDE's main UI process. If you have Rider running and look at the processes, you'll actually see two separate processes, one for the UI and one for the backend. This makes a big difference to making Rider as fast as it is, while still leveraging the very powerful functionality that the ReSharper engine provides. Also, because Rider is built on top of this shared IntelliJ platform base, that also means that you're not just limited to .NET stuff. I do full stack development in Rider. For example, one project I work on is an Angular front end and a .NET backend. I do all these things in Rider, as well as other things like PowerShell scripts, write Kubernetes Helm files, and various other things. So next we're going to take a look at installing Rider and also using the JetBrains toolbox to do this. Okay, so let's have a look at installing Rider. So if you go to jetbrains.com, the first time you visit it, you'll get this cookie policy, and their UI really brings back memories. I think a while back they actually had a cookie policy which was like a terminal in the bottom right-hand corner, which was quite cool. So if we accept that and then go to developer tools, now if you're scanning left to right, you might see RiderFlow first. RiderFlow is basically a plugin for Unity. So ignore that for now, and then go over to here where it says Rider. You then have two download buttons to choose from. I'll go with the nearest, this one, and it's auto-selected Windows, which is my operating system, but you've got Mac and Linux as well, and then you can just download it directly. Another option is to download the JetBrains Toolbox app, and if we go to each, you can see it's available on each one. This is what I would recommend. If you click on here, then it looks like this. It sits in your system tray. I'll show it in a sec, and you can see it manages all your apps and updates as well. And you can download that from here. If I load that up now here, so this is my version. So you can see we've got the ReSharper tools installed, Fleet is JetBrains kind of VS Code alternative. There's a few others, Rider, DataGrip is their kind of database IDE. And you can see I've got an update available, so I can do that just by clicking here, or I can say update all. And you can see there's a list of all the other available applications. So things like their Rust IDE. This is new Aqua. I've not actually tried this. This is an IDE for test automation, a Go IDE, and various others. But you can install these all via this JetBrains Toolbox app. You've also got projects, which shows your past history of projects. I'll collapse that because it's got client projects on. And services, which show things like the data science platform. So Space is their kind of DevOps platform. So if you think about GitHub or Azure DevOps, so it has things like issue management, DevOps pipelines, Git repository hosting, artifact hosting, things like NuGet, NPM, Maven, that kind of thing. So that's what that is. And going back to tools, you can also force a check for updates. And there's a few various settings like this has light mode or dark mode and that kind of thing. So the latest version of Rider has actually only just come out because at the time of recording, .NET 9 has just come out. So if we go to ... and other versions, and sometimes you'd see a version at the top, which is an EAP version. And if I go to Rider next version, we can see a description here. It does say that the early access program is currently closed because Rider has just been released. JetBrains quite often open an early access program which allows you early access to the next version of Rider. There isn't one available at the moment, but fairly soon there probably will be for the next version. So if you want to play around with their next experimental version and what's upcoming in Rider, then when they open their EAP version, then that will also be available to download in this list. So once you've installed the JetBrains Toolbox, you've clicked install next to Rider, it will do the rest for you. And then once it's installed, you can open it up. And in the next section, we're going to do a tour of the UI.